All right. I will start. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4, opening remarks. Mr. Powers?
Thanks, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Great to see you. I always feel like I steal Alyssa's thunder, so I'll try to keep it brief tonight. But we're definitely making progress. There's been some work scheduled for this summer. I know again around the gym floor that we've talked about some of the flooring on the first floor hallway, some of the finish of the floor down by the gym. So that is all progressing. I know in the last few meetings we've spoken about the lights and kind of those being the bane of everyone's existence, but I don't want to say we're there, but I think we're pretty close. Alyssa can certainly provide more detail. It seems as though for the most part they're working. We just want to have the commissioning agent come out to verify all that. So before we say it's 100% fixed, there's still a few more checks and balances we need to do, but certainly not where we were the last couple meetings, leading into those. So I do feel confident that we're on the right track and we may have some closure there. Obviously, there's still a few other systems in stubs that we're waiting to, get final approval on to be able to turn over. And I know Alyssa's going to talk about that. Obviously one of the concerns being landscaping. We've been working with RDA, who's been working with the landscape architect to make sure that everything is good and they can turn it over to us to go ahead and start, taking care of that. Obviously, one of our concerns, and I know some of you echo this on the call if you've been by, we're somewhat at the mercy of the landscape company right now in terms of frequency of upkeep. It seems like they're on an every 2 to 3 week mowing cycle. So when you do drive by, especially after some heavy rains that we've had, it's definitely overgrown and it does not look good, does not look like a brand new flagship building. So we have those concerns as well. We've communicated those to Alyssa, who's been working with Bacon, through their subs to make sure that it's addressed. We were hoping that they would either be out today or tomorrow to get a mow on that. And then we're just waiting to hear back from the landscape architect in terms of, some of the issues we've raised, whether that falls under the scope of the project or that just may, fall back on the district. So Alyssa may even have an update on that for this evening. Again, the lighting situation is really what had me troubled, as I know it did many of you. And we feel like we're there. So that's great news on that end. And I'm happy to answer any questions. But the building is on the interior, coming along nicely. Obviously the custodial crew is emptying all the classrooms to do their annual summer cleaning. I was over there today. Many of the classrooms have been already emptied, which is great. We do have a summer program in there, so we're working around them. But it was nice. I mean, obviously we've had some hot weather. The building was very well, climate controlled and felt comfortable to be in, which is great.
Good. All right. We will move on. Thank you. Item 5, approval of previous meeting minutes, May 8th, 2023.
A motion to approve the May 8th, 2023 meeting minutes with the following amendment: that Bacon's change order number 22, the amount of be changed from $7,742 to $7,494.44.
I'll second it. It's Mark.
All right. Any discussion? All right, so we should do the roll. How are we going to do that tonight?
I can take it, John. Alyssa, if you just want to keep track, if you don't mind,
Sure.
because I'm going to be scrolling through screens to find people.
Thank you, Michael.
Sorry. Lil,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Mark Lindy,
Yes.
Mike Loesch,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Minutes are approved.
all right, thank you. Moving on to item 6, OPM update, Alyssa.
Right. Share my screen.
Alyssa, this is Gene. I have a favor to ask you.
Sure.
John, John's looking for a call-in number and I can't find one because there was just a Zoom link on the agenda.
Yeah, I think there was only a Zoom link posted.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, there was only a Zoom link posted. There was no number for Colin.
All right. You're gonna have to cover his report then.
I will. Yeah,
All right.
he's been at all the meetings, so I know where
know.
he's at. Okay, so I'll jump into the presentation. Let's see. So we continue to meet just on a bi-weekly basis to go through any remaining contract work. As you'll see, that list is getting shorter and shorter as we're trying to close out that summer work. We had a punch list walkthrough recently where we walk through any interior items and also all of the landscaping. We had 2 walks for the landscaping on June 13th and June 27th. And that's that landscaping memo that you all saw by email. I think it was like 15 pages long and just documented the deficiencies we had. So that was sent to the landscape architect. It's now in their court to review and respond, provide corrective action to the landscaper, but also to the fencing company, because there were some significant gaps that appeared on the field areas that can be seen in the photos. We also had commentary on just a couple safety items. The outdoor bench was splintering, so we're coming to, we took a sample of that, and we're trying to figure out what's going to be our solution to either reseal that or replace that material, that decking material. So that was one of the items. And we also talked a lot about just how the finishing touches came to be. So I did outline a lot of that landscaping stuff in this presentation, and I'll touch on that when we get to it. We also had the remaining pavement parking done in the playground area. So that work was saved for the summer when it could be done and cured before the kids return. And then of course, the big milestone that Ryan said was Cooper Lighting has stated that they're done with programming. So our next step, and we've talked about this from week to week with the lighting controls, is now that the contractors say that the work is done and that they've implemented the full sequence of operations, we would feel more comfortable as a project team. And certainly what I've heard from the owner is that we want to see that fully commissioned. So the commissioning agent who's contracted through the MSBA owned sampling that commissioning. So they didn't own checking 100% of the interior and exterior lights. So what we would like to do is get a proposal both from CES, who is our commissioning agent, and GGD, who's our engineer of record, and then a third quote to compare what that would be to commission the building. And we're doing this for peace of mind to ensure that the controls are as designed and specified and operating as they should be, and that the quality that we're getting is everything that we paid for. So we're working on that right now and definitely hope to have that within the next week or two. I know with the holiday, GGD was a bit slow, as well as CES. So we'll get those numbers out to you, and we want to get that done before school fully returns. And the reason being is because a lot of those lighting controls are going to time out. And so the person that's going and commissioning them needs to make sure that they're shutting off in that 15-minute window with the vacancy sensors. And we want to make sure that it's all operating effectively as it should be. So they have made the statement that it is working as it should. Just from observations, it seems that the site lighting is turning off. We haven't had interior lighting issues for over 2 months now. So we're just continuing to track that. And that's the last remaining item to be able to close out and sign off those lighting controls. So definitely a big milestone. The last thing that I will say is about the landscaping. So again, we've issued that full memo. We've heard various observations and people driving by, and we've captured all of that information, sent that over to the landscape architect. I know myself and Joe have been hunting down Central Nurseries. They've committed. They were supposed to be here on Tuesday, but with the weather, they got pushed out a day. So they were returning on Wednesday for the mowing, and we've got that written in writing, and that was told to us today as well. So we've been following up definitely every day on that item because we think, 2 to 3 weeks is unacceptable to go without the maintenance. And until the landscape architect officially accepts the landscaping for final acceptance, and again, I'll go through that information, until it's finally accepted, it's not owned by the district. So that maintenance plan will go into effect once the landscape architect has signed off. And I know I talked to Ryan and Tom about the plan that the facilities is putting together, that they've hired additional staff to help with that. So I don't know if Tom, you want to jump in a little bit later just to talk about any updates on that. But from what I've heard since last week and as of Friday, the grounds team will begin maintaining that landscape once it's signed off and passed over to the owner. So that's kind of what's been happening there. As far as maintenance.
John, can I ask Alyssa a question real quick?
Sure.
So listen, we keep saying 2 to 3 weeks for mowing. When was the last time it was mowed?
We were there around the week of June 20, I think they were there June 22nd or 23rd. One of the last meetings that we had already asked them to return. And
but I don't think they were there 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's been, if you've been by that place, that lawn is at least a foot high. It was a foot high a week ago.
Yeah, it's been at least 3 weeks. Now that I'm looking at the calendar, it's been at least 3 weeks.
So why didn't anybody from the OPM team get on them? If they're responsible for it, why do we let it get to that point?
So we've repeatedly asked them, and all communication has always gone through Bacon to make sure that the landscaper has returned. What they said to us was that there was a miscommunication, that since we didn't send a detailed deficiency list to them, they assumed that since everything had gone unsaid, that the landscape architect had signed off and that they didn't own the maintenance anymore. We obviously told them that was not the case. Until the landscape architect has signed off, then it's their responsibility. It's not their responsibility anymore to maintain. So that started off as a miscommunication from the GC to the sub. We've since cleared that up, and we've been hounding them through the holiday to get back on site. And finally, we said, Bacon's communication hasn't been effective enough, and we had to reach out ourselves. So that's when Joe called the president of Central Nurseries as well. Okay, so I pulled out the specifications from the landscaping section and pulled out the maintenance. And again, just reiterating that until final acceptance, they still own watering, weeding, mowing, pruning, and resetting any of the plants that didn't make it. And until they get that final acceptance in writing from the landscape architect, they'll continue to own that through the warranty period. So that's what we're tracking right now. Again, they've committed to coming on Wednesday of this week So I mean, we'll be out there making sure that that happens. They said that with the weather, they got pushed out a day. So we're continuing to track that. Again, we've sent the memo. We're waiting for corrective action from them. They know it's coming. They know that there are issues. Bacon has already seen the memo that we've sent, and they're aware that there will be follow-up to be done. And I don't know, Tom, at this point, if you want to just talk a little bit about what that will mean for the district once the landscaping is turned over to you this summer.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, in looking at what's going on and talking to the groundskeeper and everything, we're estimating it's going to have to be mowed every 7 to 10 days. Of course, that all depends on the weather. If it's dry weather, it won't require it as much. But if we get hot, rainy days, it's going to be probably closer to 5 days. Every 5 days will be mowed. The hardest part we're going to have is keeping up with the weeding, but we also have 3 people that at any time we can use to weed. I do have a nighttime guy, and if I have to put him there every night to weed, we'll make sure the weeding gets done. The only thing I will say is I don't think the weeding has ever been done in the playground area off the gym. We've got weeds that are 4 feet tall. I don't think they've ever touched that area, to be honest with you. That section alone is going to take a day for one man. So there is a lot of work to be done in there, and our utility workers are going to be spending a lot of time there in the spring and fall. There's no doubt about it. But it should be able to be done utilizing the night guy. I've ordered equipment just for that building. There'll be a building out back, or there'll be a shed out back with mowers, everything on site. So there won't be any delay or any reason they can say, well, we couldn't get the machines there. The machines will be on site every day. So between the groundskeeper and the utility workers, the mowing will be done every 7 to 10, and weeding will be done as necessary. And that will probably be about every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks. They'll be weeding. And when the landscapers go in, they go in with 3 guys for 3 days. So I'm going to say it's going to take 2 guys all week to weed that place, but I don't see any problem doing it. Unfortunately, it's just going to take away from a few other things that are going to get done with the district, but we can definitely handle landscaping.
That's a question, Tom, why we have them on.
Yeah.
So do we have all those employees on staff now?
We do, but what it is we have a head groundskeeper and we have 3 utility workers. A utility worker is a custodian, a maintenance man, or a groundskeeper, anywhere I need him. So we technically have 4 people that are working just the Bridgewater schools.
So I guess my concern is just because you just said it yourself, and I've been saying it all along. There's a tremendous amount of work at this new facility. There's ornamental grasses that have to be pruned. There's all types of different trees and shrubs. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work here. I think you're spot on when you say it's a week just to weed the place. I mean, so if we have those people on staff now, and if you look at the existing facilities and how they're maintained, do we have the capacity to handle the school? Because
To be honest with you, I would actually hire 1 person full-time just for that school alone. That's a big school.
Right. But so back to my original question, do we have the capacity to handle the school? And
only because I am going to utilize my nighttime maintenance man there almost every night.
which we're not doing now?
No, because we're not
We're
maintaining.
not
it yet.
responsible for it yet.
But I guess my question is there's 4 guys on staff right now that are working grounds, is that correct?
At the present time, you have 3 guys working grounds. I have 1 guy inside doing painting of the buildings and other projects that need to be done. You also have to remember, I only have 3 maintenance men.
But it
For
looks like,
7 schools.
and I'm not questioning what you have for guys, I'm just wondering, do we have the capacity to handle this?
It's
Because
going to be tight. I'm not going to lie to you. If we could afford a full-time groundskeeper, another groundskeeper, I would say we definitely should think about it, because that school is going to cause major issues on keeping up with other things that the school needs done.
Well, I mean, if you just walk around the existing high school, the existing middle school, there's a tremendous amount of grounds work going unattended to now.
Yeah, well, the other problem too is we're running into, don't forget, everybody's taking their vacations during the summer. I don't think they've had a week yet where there's been more than 2 people there.
All right, it's just because it's a tremendous amount of work, and the condition of it now, in my opinion, is unacceptable, and that's not in the school district at this point. That's on the OPM and the general contractor and the landscape company. But when this gets turned over to us, it's gonna be like a spigot gets turned on, and it's gonna be a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to take away from, take that night maintenance guy, and there'll be no more painting of classrooms at night, no more doing other things like, we try to keep up with the buildings at night, because he is going to be at that school probably every single night doing something.
And I think that's why I brought this up early on, saying, we probably can't handle it. And should we look to privatize this building and get, excuse me, and can we use existing funds, to create a maintenance plan or something out of the existing budget to bring in a company like UConn or somebody that can handle it? Because I don't think we can, but that's.
I agree with you. but I
We'd
think-
run into all sorts of issues, Pat, with
Union.
the union, if we tried to privatize it without giving them the first opportunity to take care of it.
They're gonna tell us to hire more people.
And I know I'm probably out of the scope of this committee, but I see how we maintain the other buildings, and I'm concerned for this building, that's all.
No, trust me, that's why the only saving grace is I know I have that nighttime guy that I can pretty much put there 5 days a week.
And you just drive around the high school, there's 4-foot weeds all around the back, the handicapped entrance, it's in rough shape, and I'm just.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna spill over to this, that's all.
But again, like I said, unfortunately, right now, last week, we had 1 guy in. The week before, we had 2 guys in. The week before that, we had 1 guy in. The vacations are also killing us. But I do agree. If I could privatize that school, I would tell you to do it, because it would, at least then we know it's going to be maintained. But union wise, I don't think we could do it.
Well, I think we gotta figure out how to maintain it, right? That's what we gotta figure out, so.
And again, I'm giving everything I can to do that school done. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's going to take away from other little projects getting done for the school to have, that to keep that building looking as best we can.
Alyssa, the idea that it's never been weeded, is that something that is part of the responsibility still of the installing contractor because it hasn't been accepted?
I'll have to look on the actual plan for that, because there were some areas of the field that were excluded from the contract, like they just owned putting in grass, but that was it. So I'll have to look into that one. I didn't originally have that in my memo.
Okay, that'd be helpful, because if that's a day's worth of work, then that's a day's worth of work that won't be applied to the other things we're already talking about.
Yeah, and Tom, I'll be out there tomorrow, so if you're around, we can walk that area. I know that when we did walk, we went to the playgrounds and we saw a lot of the stubs right around the playground equipment that needed to be removed. But if there's another area that's of concern, I would like to know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like I said, I watched those landscapers, and there's 3 of them for 3 days straight. It took them to clean that school. So it's definitely going to be a tough one. I also think something we're going to have to somehow consider also is we have over 100 yards of mulch at that school. And I don't know how financially we're going to be able to afford that yearly.
Yeah, so that's another item that the landscape architect can provide some guidance on, because there's been other materials like reusable tire materials that have been used for mulch, just in other areas that could be of use for this. So we can look into that and just ask the question.
Yeah, well, I plan on hopefully doing that, like, this year, put in 25% artificial mulch somewhere, and then slowly do the whole school.
Alyssa, what the landscape memo that was sent out, right? So
Yes.
I hate to be nitpicky, right? But first of all, those beds, in my opinion, have never had an edge on them. And I saw you noted that in the landscape memo. They sent the guy there for a day that I think tried to edge him with a weed whacker, and it looked that way. I mean, the other thing too is Tom talks about mulch. Look at the mulch there. I know they did it in the fall. It's like they used whatever they had left over. The parking lot to the right is red mulch. It's like red dyed mulch. The rest of the stuff is the bark mulch. It's just, it looks sloppy up there. Just they need to come back and they need to edge those beds. We need, I don't know if the specs said, if it just said one type of mulch. Just go up and look at the parking lot trees. They have this red dyed mulch around. If you look up against the building, it's bark mulch, and and nothing's ever been edged.
Yep, yeah, we
That's-
noted that definitely in our memo.
That's noted in the memo, but I don't think we want to go the route of rubber mulch. I think that's a mistake. I think we want to stick with, an organic mulch, but I think they need to touch that up and make it all the same color.
Pat, if I could just add, one of the reasons why you come up with a comprehensive list that you send to the landscape installer is to make sure that they fulfill all of those deficiencies. And then once those deficiencies are done, they ask for a final inspection so that the sign off can happen. They own, per the specifications, there's specific and direct requirements that they're supposed to do in order to receive acceptance and a final acceptance of the landscape areas, plant shrubs. So once this list has been addressed and we've been properly notified by Bacon from Central, we're physically going to have the landscape architect and our team walk it again to make sure that they met those obligations. We're not looking to allow them to walk away and the school district inheriting something that they're already against the 8 ball on. The other portion of this is that as you move forward, the weeding, I think the weeding, in all due respect, will be your biggest challenge. Cutting grass isn't a challenge once you get going and routinely doing it on a system. It's getting it maintained initially and then maintaining it properly moving forward. And I don't think the consistency of Central Nursery has done that for the district, and/or we haven't gotten the final acceptance for the district to take ownership. Eventually, without hesitation, the district is going to own these grounds and coming up with a long-term plan and how they maintain it, because these plants and shrubs are going to grow. They're going to need pruning, trimming, and reduction of size as they grow. I've been through too many schools over the last 35 years that don't have that capacity, and then they end up tearing out plants and shrubs that they weren't able to maintain. And because without proper pruning, things get out of hand. And then when things get out of hand, they get neglected. It's just the nature of the beast. So I think once we get a final letter saying that they've completed their obligations and we have a final inspection and a sign off, at that point, the district needs to really, sit down and figure out where the pavement, the lines meet the pavement. And then at that, and they're going to have to evaluate it year to year. Events are going to change with this property. You're going to see certain elevations and growths grow more than others, and they're going to be harder to maintain it. And pulling a maintenance guy, and what I've heard a couple of times is pulling a maintenance guy to get over there to do things. It's going to affect the interior of the building eventually when that maintenance has to be done on the inside, because it's not just the outside of this building. So I think it's going to be a balance, and the school district's going to have to look at it, as needed basis moving forward.
So overall, your comments and your observations are very important. At some point here, we're crossing over to the maintenance that the district has to do, and it really is, once it's turned over, it's beyond, I think, the role of the committee.
Yeah.
Unless there's some change in materials that we think we can incorporate into the project, properly under the budget that we still have available. But beyond that, as a taxpayer and a building committee member, I'm going to be disappointed if the outside isn't taken care of just as nicely as the inside, because it's an important element of the whole learning experience for this school. We went out of our way to green the outside of the school because the public and the town and the parents feel it's important. And that's where we made the investment. So hopefully the district can come up with a plan to take care of it properly. I mean, it's a huge investment that the town made in this building.
So John, I would agree, once we're overstepping, as far as this committee goes, once the building's turned over. But I think originally I brought this up because I was concerned about the capacity and the ability for the district to maintain this building long term. And I think if you remember, I asked the question, will we have a large reserve left over? I asked if we could use some of that money to do like a 2-year maintenance contract or a contract while stuff was still under warranty to a private firm. So that's why I keep bringing it up. If there's still that opportunity, because I think the district is going to have significant challenges maintaining this, if there's still that opportunity to do something private, while we still have access to some of those contingency funds, so to speak, I think now's the time to have that discussion. But I agree. That's another conversation as a parent or a taxpayer once the building's turned over as far as the maintenance. But my concern now is why we are committee members, it's not being maintained. The landscape firm that's supposed to be maintaining it isn't. And if we have an opportunity to put something in place now for the future, we should. That's all.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments on this topic? What is in the chat? Okay.
John, this is Lisa. Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I was just, because I'm out at recess all the time, when I was looking through those slides, Alyssa, the grass in the playground one with all the equipment that's not growing there, that's because the kids run up and down that all the time.
We noted that when I walked with
Okay.
Mark the first time, he said perhaps that area could be paved or some other solution
Yeah.
to add there. Because we are aware that that's from
Okay.
the kids just running up and down.
Okay.
But we're really looking for the landscape architect to tell us what might be a good solution
Oh,
there,
good.
since things were not growing.
And then I just had a clarification on the backfields. When it rains, they flood horribly. Is that part of the landscape architect's area, or was that just as is?
So
Those
we've
backfields.
addressed that before. That's how it was in the contract. So nothing
Okay.
further was owed there for the drainage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'll run through just some of the other remaining items to close out my update. So we're having DePauli return for the lower level outside the gym to recode that terrazzo. So that will be cleaned and done at the lower level. The gym floor will also be resealed by JJ Curran, and that's going to be sometime between the week of July 17th and the 21st. And then NB Kenny is going to be scheduled to install the gas submeters over the break. So that will be coordinated likely on a weekend when no one is there. And then we have an AV training scheduled for July 20th. And then the last item is we're tracking the missing panel board covers that have shipped on June 12th. And we're still awaiting those 2 items, but that will be contingent for our final occupancy of the building. So we also have 3 owner requested changes that I'll go through. We prepared some signage for the emergency card readers. If you guys remember, we had a few times that those were accidentally swiped, and that initiates a lockdown. And that's supposed to be a safety feature in case there was an emergency. So we just wanted to notate that those were different than regular access card readers. They're up higher out of reach. So in case there was an emergency, that I wouldn't get swiped by accident. So we've been talking about that for quite some time. The price was for those 5 signs at those emergency card readers. We also had various wall tile damage that is pictured in our actual change order that you can see. So while we're there for the summer work, we've had them provide a price for us to repair a lot of those ceramic tiling. It's not as easy as like a simple resilient tile that can just be glued and replaced. There's grouting and things that go along with that. So you'll see that price is for 2 days. of work for various repairs. And the final item was another owner request of having 3 black vinyl chain link fence gates at the fields. And that will just allow facilities to be able to maintain, pick up balls or toys that end up over the fence, or otherwise need to get into access of those areas and not have to consistently jump the fence to get over there. So that's the price for the 3 gates there, for a total of $9,441.54. If you all remember, we also have held Bacon's payment contingent upon finishing the lighting controls and the training. So as we start to work towards that final goal, we'll end up releasing that payment to them. I did get one call this week from one of the previous subcontractors asking why their retainage hasn't been released. So, and in the few months that hasn't been released, we've only received one call. So we want to be a bit timely about releasing that payment once we fulfill the goal of getting everything to 100% and accepted. So that's that. I know that there's a couple upcoming meetings. And again, these are if needed, if necessary. If we have an update, if we have business to vote on, we will still meet with you. If we don't have anything to discuss, we'll just go ahead and send a memo or an update of what's been going on this summer. I did get your email, Mark Lindy, about the final meeting on here, the October 9th meeting. I believe there's a holiday. So we'll have to adjust that meeting as needed if we do need to meet that month. But I did receive that from you, so thank you. And then just continuing to track that, the budget, obviously we're on budget still, getting closer and closer to completion. We have submitted all of the backup for the ProPays, so we're just waiting on that funding from the ProPays, but again, those amounts are smaller and smaller. Sydney in our office went through an exercise with Tola and Odalis to make sure that we have every invoice for the entire project accounted for, reviewed, audited, and documented. So we're going through the process of that and just filing out any of the later ProPays. We haven't had a Bacon invoice in some months, so that's not going to be reflected until we release that payment to them. But otherwise, that is the update that I had. And if you guys have any questions, you can let me know.
Are there any questions? All right. Thank you, Alyssa. I'm going to move on to the designer update, item 7.
It's pretty minor. John continues to be out there. And this change order you're seeing has his review. And otherwise, he's participating in all the issues that Alyssa just went through with you. He's been all over the lighting contractor as well as the landscape issues. We do have a proposal, as Alyssa mentioned, coming from our electrical engineer, GGD, to commission the lighting system. And if it works, great. And if you get a better price from those 2 other firms, they're both equally qualified. So beyond that, we really are just trying to support the closeout.
Okay. I had a question. I think it's a design question, but it's also related to I think the building authority contract. But going back to the comment Lisa made about the flooding in the field, I don't appreciate a site plan, how that ties into the work that we've done. But is there any chance that if it wasn't in the original scope, we do have an existing site, right, that we were building a new building on?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that can be incorporated, whatever that work might be? It doesn't sound like we want to have a continually flooding playing field or field. Is there any way we could assess if that corrective measures could be incorporated into this contract as an element of the overall site of the building, whether it was part of the new work or not?
We definitely, those playgrounds were part of the new scope. I think there was, I can't speak to it. I assume that, well, to answer your question, yes.
But I'm thinking,
we could definitely talk to the civil engineer and the landscape architect. I think one thing, to start is, was there any grading called for, and, what is the existing condition, which I think we have an as-built survey. And if whether the work is as specified or not, we could take that as-built survey and create some suggestions for pricing out to deal with drainage, John.
Alyssa, what do you think? Or Joe, what do you think? I mean, if it's part of the overall function of the school, and I'm thinking we went out of our way to be good stewards of the budget that we had, right? Not add any additional scope that wasn't necessary or deemed to be necessary at the time. Now that's creating a problem with the function of the school. And we do have budget remaining. We somehow, rightfully roll that type of work as a correction or as an improvement, the function of the whole project. We have that opportunity.
Almost, I don't mind jumping in. So there's three parts to this, John. One, are the rains causing it to flood and it stay flooded for a certain period of time? There's a certain amount of time that any moisture takes to mitigate through soil conditions. The second part of it is, was the material that was placed and the material laid for the growing of the grass adequate and meet the specifications? And then third, were the as-builts correctly done? Those are probably the three avenues. I think Gene needs to really look at specifications and or the as-built to see what it does and whether there was a crown or just a pitch on that field to get it to one side or the other. The other part of we've had an exceptionally amount of large rainfall that have fallen, and that I wish it was just that field that showed mitigation needed around the perimeter. A lot of fields and a lot of school districts experienced it, especially the month of June and late May, that found an exceptional amount of water that, maintained on these fields for a longer duration of time because of the saturation of the soil. So I think if we can address those three, there's no reason why the school district can't try to come up with a alternative solution based on the civil engineer of how to correct that. And then the last part of it would be that normally you probably hit your 8% of the MSBA contribution to site, so it would be 100% on the district on any of these items that we might be talking about on a restoration portion. That's all.
Okay, that's a good point. So
This is Lisa again. I have some info. I worked at that school when it was that field was originally a soccer field. I'm talking about the one right behind the school, and there was never any flooding back there. The flooding that we saw starting in September, anytime there was any rain, and it's, where you enter that big field, it's right there, right in that first area that was flooding, and it's flooded.
Sounds like it's a grading issue then.
Yeah, but it was a functioning soccer field way back when.
So Gene, if you could look at the as-built and just see if they hit the lines that the civil engineer has actually drawn up to see if there's any deviation from that might help the circumstances. And, the soils in that area may have been shot for the as-bills, but there's some settlement that might have occurred now. So we may want to look at that as well.
Right, will do. Thank you, Lisa, for the information on where it is.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Hope that answered your question, John.
Yeah, actually, I want to throw out maybe a bullet 4. So I actually don't know what we're talking about because I don't have a plan like in my head, but I was thinking that this was work that was not out of the original limit, scope limit.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Is that correct, Alyssa?
The specific field that Lisa's talking about was not part of it.
Okay. Because it's part of the school, let's hypothetically say it wasn't part of the original scope of work limit. So we didn't make any improvements. We may have made changes to it, and that's something we should be responsible for if we create a condition that's made it, caused it, right? Let's just say it's totally unrelated to the work that we planned, but now that we recognize it's a problem, we have any opportunity to use funding that we still have, whether it's 100% strict money on this project, correct it if we determine that it's detrimental to the whole use of
The
the,
answer is yes.
okay.
John, can I ask you a question to follow up on Lisa's?
Sure.
So was that area used as a staging area to store materials?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because I remember during construction, it was just kind of fallow, like everything was just growing wild.
Yeah.
Patrick.
So I was just, because I know one of those fields had big piles on it during construction, so I didn't know if, maybe some tight soils got put under the loom layer and it's not allowing it to drain properly, or.
I think that's the one that they used to play baseball on, right? The PE field, Lisa?
Yeah, that one, yeah, and that one, I'm not sure about if that one is okay. Yeah, that is the one if you're looking towards the senior center on the left, that
Right.
one on the left, yeah.
That's the one that had storage of materials on it, correct?
Yeah, it had like some rocks and things like that.
But Pat, to your point, we can shoot the elevations on a couple of spots there from the civil engineer to see if there's any deviation in pitch and flow, and that'll determine whether you need to, either aerate it and percolate it, or even do a quick little spoon sample out of it to find out what the existing conditions are and see if there's corrective measures we can do.
I mean, if there's like tight soils under that loom, like stone
Yeah,
does.
could be compacted too. I mean,
That's
compacted loam doesn't allow it to drain as well, so there might be a number of different things that we can do.
That could have changed even if the elevations are on and there's crappy material under that.
Yeah.
Because stuff was stored there and they pushed it around.
Yep.
It may be part of the problem.
But we can look into that, John.
All right, I think it'd be worthwhile. Okay. So were there any other questions or discussion on the designer update? All right, thank you, Gene. Item 8, approval of Bacon change order number 23.
So change order 23 was in the amount of $9,441.54.
Any further discussion on this? All right, why don't we take the roll?
Don't we need a motion in a second?
Oh, geez, we do.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'm glad someone's paying attention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lil, second.
All right,
John,
yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Mike Loesch,
Yes.
And that is everyone. I vote aye as well.
Thank you.
Michael, you're getting pretty good at that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All
285 days.
Item 9, report of the communication group.
So the only piece we have to report is that actually on August 14th, the website will go down permanently. We are working with Christina from CHA to have all of the documents moved to the town's website. So no, going forward as of this evening, no documents will be uploaded to the current site any longer, as we are making that transition next month. A page will be built on the town website, and webmaster for the town will be taking over. And that, unless I missed anything, Lil, concludes the report.
Michael, that's on track on the town end.
Yes, yep, it's on
Okay.
track. The contract for the website goes away on the 14th. And Christina has told us that her and her team will have everything over to Brad in time for that to happen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I do have a new business item.
Okay, so item 10, we already talked about, right? Next school building committee meetings, which was the next item.
Oh, right.
So based on Mark's comment, so we're going to stick with the 14th. It might be tough, but we'll keep it on the agenda and see how it goes. And October 9th, we said was Columbus/Indigenous Peoples Day, so that's the holiday, so we'll have to find a different date.
And then for September as well, we may want to shift that to the 18th. Just in recognition of the 9/11 memorial.
Okay, so why don't we just plan for the 14th, August 14th, and then see how that meeting falls?
Yeah.
If we have it. All right. Item 11, new business.
Yep, so I just have one new business item. I received a PCO today that I mentioned to Bacon. I would prefer it to be T&M of something that we can review and track time and materials in person. So, and this was for various drywall touch-ups. And Tom, if you remember when we walked during our punch list walkthrough and our warranty walkthroughs, there are quite a few areas that had been damaged during the school year that we said if ever we wanted the carpenter to come back and touch up those areas, drywall, paint, we could do that. So she put together some numbers just for rough order of magnitude where, you know, if they needed temp staging, that would be included, but we would just do it as a time and materials type thing for all the areas that we would tag that needed touch up. So this is something for consideration. I'm not sure how it fits in the maintenance plan for the summer, but we figured we would at least present this as an option. While most of the kids are not around, we just have summer school going on. So again, this is something for consideration. It's not a proposal that needs to be approved tonight, but it would be something that we would track on time and materials. It could be a not to exceed amount that they have here, or if there's a plan for the touch-ups to happen by the facilities team, that's another thing. But again, I just received this number today. And so we would be paying obviously prevailing wages through the contract price. So if it's something that, you know, Tom's team would rather do, then just up for discussion, really.
I'll be honest with you, I would not have the time this summer. I'm actually, my carpenter is retiring this month. So I'll be looking for a new one, and that'll be a 3 to 4 week process. So there's no way I would be able to go through that building and touch up everything that needs to get done. I'll be honest.
Oh, Alyssa, is this use related or is this construction related?
So it's all use related. All of the construction that happened when we did the panels way back when was addressed at that time by the contractors. All the work that was done around putting in those skylights and that railing work, that touch up was done. So this would just be, there's multiple places in classrooms and hallways that got banged up, in the cafeteria. So it would just be a number of places that we would have, you know, a drywaller and a taper come up, patch it, paint it, and address it on a time and materials basis.
I mean, I personally, John, I think we should definitely do it, but I mean, we want to keep the school maintained, so.
This is Mark. I agree as well. We can get this done. Keep the school looking polished and sharp.
Okay, I agree too. So Alyssa, you said this is just preliminary.
Yeah, so I would say if someone wanted to make a motion to do time and materials, wall repair and paint touch up, not to exceed $5,000, I think that would be appropriate.
You have 6,000 there. You want to do 6,000 to be safe?
I don't think that they're gonna need a lift, if I'm honest, but we can do 6,000 to be safe.
Yeah, do it under 6, listen, that way, if you don't use it all, they're just not gonna spend it, so.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything they can do will be reached by the ladder. But if there are, you know, really high up places that we identify, and this is something that I'll walk with you, Tom, and Mark, either this week or next week when Mark gets back, and we can identify all the areas with blue tape that we want to be addressed.
No problem.
I'll make a motion to have the touch-up or repair done not to exceed $6,000.
I'll second it. It's Mark.
And that was on a time and materials basis, right, Pat?
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, let's do the roll then.
John,
Yes.
Lil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes,
Mike Loesch,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Everybody's moving on my screen. And I vote yes. Motion passed.
Yeah, let's go through another question before we have her on. And we have Tom on.
Sure.
Can I interrupt? I gotta jump off for a public forum, but I just want to say thanks to everybody, and we'll keep up the work and make sure that everything gets taken care of as we spoke about.
So the mechanicals, are they being run by the school district now, or are they being run still by an outside firm until they're turned over? Have they been turned over? All the mechanicals?
My guys have already done filter changes, and this coming week, they're doing another one. So we have taken over the filter wise, we are maintaining them.
So when we talked about the construction and the maintenance of the stuff, we talked about the O&M documents being delivered to the school district. Are all the O&M documents, have they been delivered to the school district for anything that we've taken over, Alyssa?
Yes, they have.
And is the school district following the O&M documents? Do they have a plan to, I mean, do they have to, does the Freon need to be regulated so often? Are we, is there an internal O&M plan for the systems that we've taken over?
There's O&Ms for all the equipment that's been, the last one we were waiting on was from the electrician, and that was sent over in the beginning of June. So I can't speak to, you know, what Tom has done this summer regarding the
Hey, listen, I haven't got any paperwork on that stuff yet.
Do we
I've
have
got
a,
nothing from you.
we talked about,
Carrie's Yeah, Carrie sent that all over to you electronically. So,
And I told
Way
her
that
it
you
came
were
through as, it came through all encrypted. Nothing ever came through.
oh, that message, sorry, that message never made it to me.
Yeah, I have got,
Okay, we'll make
I've
sure.
received nothing.
I'll make sure that you have it because I have all of it. And
Okay.
she sent it to us both, so,
Yeah, mine came through 100% encrypted. There was nothing to read.
okay.
So the O and M plans have not been received by Tom yet?
No,
But we're maintaining the systems?
just to the point of filters.
So are there service contracts needed for these systems to keep them up and running?
Yep, and I've already got together with our contractors, and as soon as I get all this stuff, they will be going up and giving me a plan of how we're gonna handle the school.
But you're still needing the O and M document? Okay, so is there an O and M plan for the playground and the playground structures, and do we have a plan for those also?
Yes,
Have they been provided to Tom?
I guess not,
No, I've got
but I'm
nothing.
hearing tonight, so,
I've got absolutely nothing.
So I mean, this is my concern with the building. We've taken over the building. And we're kind of maintaining things, but not really. We need to get this O and M stuff over to the district so they can have a plan.
absolutely.
Just to clarify, it was sent to the district. It's just not in a form that could be read.
Correct.
Right? So I don't know, is this the first time you're hearing that, Alyssa?
It is.
So how,
Well, I did let Carrie know. I sent her an email
Okay.
saying I cannot open anything.
okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But yeah,
I
you
will
need,
follow up.
definitely need that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
All
I
right.
think any O and M documents that that we've taken over stuff, well, we should get to the correct people in it, so. And I know you did it, we just didn't open it or whatever, so, thank you.
So does anybody have any other new business? The next item is public comment. All right, any public comment? All right, the next item is adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Mike Loesch.
All right, thank you, everybody. Michael, I'm gonna go first and say yes.
Yep. Lil,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
and Mike Loesch. Yes. And I vote yes to adjourn. Good night, folks.
Good night, folks.
Aye.
Have a good night.
Good night.